Hi, I'm Amy Baxter, editor of Retail Leader, and welcome to Trend Talk. Every week on Trend Talk, we chat with an industry expert about ongoing retail trends and news. This week, my guest is Tenley Fitzgerald, Vice President of Marketing at Yes Apples, a consumer-first Apple brand. And we're talking about e-commerce and Yes Apples' journey into online shopping. So welcome, Tenley. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Amy. It's great to be here.
So it's been around since 1919. It's a New York brand, and the branding has now changed. Can you just kind of walk me through how this came to be?
Absolutely. So, like I said, we own our own farm, but then we work with growers throughout the state of New York. We have been in business for over 100 years, growing and selling and marketing apples. But we're always this kind of liaison between the growers of New York and then the retailers. So we were helping, guide growing practices, shipping, packing, distributing apples, and then acting as the sales and marketing arm for the agency to retailers. When I was brought in, consumers had no idea about all the great work that was being done behind the scenes. So we developed Yes Apples so that we could highlight growers. We could highlight the great things that they're doing for the land, being stewards, of the region, growing these great tasting apples, and to cultivate a relationship between the folks behind the scenes and the consumers. Of course, all with the intent of getting people more excited about apples and putting more apples in their cart, but really, as an opportunity to storytell and be able to give light to a bunch of the great folks that we were working with, and really make a connection between them and the consumers.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because when you go to the produce section in a grocery store, you have like no idea where you might say like, oh, this one comes from such and such place, but that's the extent of your knowledge, really. When did the company start shipping apples through e-commerce?
We did a soft launch last spring, and then really kind of hit the ground running with some marketing this past fall. So it's a pretty new venture for us. And we've been, pleased with how the sales have been coming in, but are, excited to continue developing kind of from a merchandising perspective and really scaling the business over the next few years.
Yeah, I want to dig into like more of like what it means to be a Apple brand in a little bit, but
yeah.
I'm curious, like, what was behind the decision to launch the online shop directly to consumers?
There were kind of three main points that we were thinking about, because, of course, there are a ton of opportunities in e-commerce in general and, working with partners that we work with in brick and mortar. And we can talk about that more later as well. But for us, there were three kind of key wins. One, we grow all the classics. When you think of apple varieties, there's, Galas and Honeycrisp and Fuji's. But we also have worked with our farmer partners to grow more specialty varieties. And some of these varieties are actually exclusive to New York State. So two of these in particular are called Snapdragon and Ruby Frost apples. They were actually developed in partnership with Cornell University. So these apples are phenomenal. Snapdragon in particular just gets rave reviews. Whomever is trying them is immediately biting into it and declaring it their new favorite apple. But this apple in particular has a little bit of a smaller distribution. So by going direct to consumer, folks that are unable to find Snapdragon in store but have tried it or heard from it from someone else, now they have an opportunity to buy it directly from us. So it was really to help broaden that distribution for some of these more specialty varieties. As we're seeing, of course, pre-COVID, but certainly in light of COVID as well, online and omni-channel shopping trends only continue to increase. So, when our consumers are online doing other activities, we wanted to give them an opportunity to be able to make their Apple purchases online as well, and really kind of meet them where they are. And then really from sort of a quality perspective, by going direct from kind of what we say is orchard to consumer, we have the nice to have element of being able to control that, that experience. So we're picking the apples, we're packaging them, and then we're shipping them immediately. So there's, kind of a shorter a shorter life between orchard and being, delivered to the consumer. There's less handling. It's getting there in a quicker time frame. It's just a nice kind of end-to-end experience, starting with us and ending with the consumer without, additional hands in the middle. So those were kind of the three big wins that we felt that we could achieve by going online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are some of the challenges that are specific to shipping from orchard to someone's house?
We're lucky in that apples are a fairly hardy fruit, and they don't have to be refrigerated, even though we encourage consumers to do that just to get a longer shelf life out of their apples. But if you take them and put them in a box and ship them, for 2 days, there isn't a detriment to the quality of their fruit. So we're pretty lucky in that sense. Aside from, that kind of nice to have, there, of course, are shipping issues. And if we're not owning that shipping process, that obviously, kind of contributes to a lack of control. So sometimes a box is ripped or, there's a bruised apple. We, have a great, customer guarantee experience, offer. So if that is the case, we'll send a new box. But just not having control over the entire shipping component, does leave further to be, room for error. And then, just the cost of shipping, the cost of materials, especially with COVID, has really increased. So we are taking on those costs for ourselves so as not to pass them along to the consumer. But that is something that we wish we could, wiggle our nose and have be gone. And then right now it's really just about scaling the business. We have folks that are on the ground picking the apples, packing them and shipping them for us. But as we can continue to scale, we can have more folks helping with that, which will allow for more merchandising opportunities, more new products, that type of thing.
Yeah. And just to clarify, this is like just alongside the regular like B2B business of selling to retailers or kind of being that middleman with other growers too, right? So now you have B2C and B2B to retailers as well.
Yep. That's right. Yep. So we value our retail partnerships incredibly. We have great penetration in the Northeast along the, East Coast, even as far as Texas, and beyond. And that's where we've lived for the majority of our existence. And, we love working with all of our retail partners. This is just kind of a nice bonus element that while going to direct to consumer, we do just have the nice to have of having a little bit more control over the experience that the customer is having.
Yeah, neat. What's been the response from consumers? How are you finding customers?
I mean, it's just been overwhelmingly positive. And there's kind of been responses that we never even could have imagined, like people telling us that when they open the box, the like aroma of the apples really wafts out at them and they feel like they've just stepped into the orchard. It's almost like they're doing our marketing job for us. But it's been great. And one thing that's been a real perk is that there are so many folks that we've seen order from us that are from the Northeast or from New York in particular that have moved away, that are unable to find some of these sort of legacy, varieties or some of the new ones that I mentioned, like Snapdragon, as they've moved away. So now they're finding Yes Apples and finding a new way to get some of their favorite fruit into the home again, which is just kind of giving them a piece of home or giving them a piece of nostalgia that they grew up with. So that's been a great kind of bonus add as well.
Yeah, I was curious if there were some New Yorkers that had moved away, like who the customer base really is. But what's the farthest that you've shipped them?
We've shipped them to the West Coast. We've shipped to Washington State a few times. We get, orders from Florida and Texas. We've shipped to Oregon as well. And then we get a bunch of orders on the East Coast. It's a fairly nice representation of the U.S., which was also kind of a nice thing to see, that folks are finding us from all over and making those orders. But we've gotten a couple actual emails from folks who have moved away, who've just said, this is like being home. I'm so grateful to have a New York apple in my home because it's really bringing back the flavors that I grew up with.